When a paralyzed millionaire laughed at a poor girl's heartwarming offer, an unexpected life-changing connection began. Amelia's heart raced as she stood outside the sleek high-rise, the heartbeat of Chicago thumping behind her. The sun glinted off the glass, reflecting a life so distant from hers, a life of lavish parties and penthouses, where problems melted away with a tap on a screen. She clutched her basket of freshly baked cookies, their warm chocolate chips glistening like little droplets of hope. She thought of her siblings waiting for her late-night baking experiments, the smell of vanilla and butter creating a cocoon of comfort in their creaky home. Today, she wanted to share that warmth with Caleb, a man shrouded in shadows despite the opulence surrounding him. When she knocked, the world around her felt suspended, the silence stretching like an unbroken thread. Finally, the door opened, revealing Caleb, once a revered tech mogul now imprisoned by fate. His eyes were dull, a stark contrast to the city pulsing below. But when Amelia smiled and offered him the cookies, believing in kindness as power, she was met with laughter, a bitter sound that filled the empty spaces of his apartment. Cookies? He chuckled derisively. You think I need cookies? At that moment, her heart sunk like a stone in the bitter lake of humiliation. The laughter echoed in her ears, mixing with the rich memories of her family's joy, now tainted by his disdain. How could he dismiss a simple gift so easily? Wasn't generosity meant to transcend differences? In his laughter, Amelia felt the sharp sting of social prejudice, the gulf of privilege that separated them. She was merely a waitress and baker, fighting daily to keep her family afloat. Yet, behind those layers of arrogance, a flicker of guilt ignited in Caleb's chest. He was so entwined in his regret and privilege that he had built walls both around his body and heart. His laughter bounced off them like a child's voice lost in a crowd. He was rich, yet painfully lonely, living surrounded by emptiness despite every luxury at his fingertips. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the community prepared for a charity event, whispers of Amelia's resilience traveled through the neighborhood like wildfire. She fervently decorated the small space, her laughter contagious to all who passed. Caleb, having been dragged in reluctantly, watched her work. Each painstaking detail breathed life into that room, and despite his hesitations, he felt the stirrings of something long forgotten, a sense of belonging. Amelia's warmth formed a bridge across their chasm. Could they unravel the complexities of their separate lives together? Would Caleb, with his wealth and guilt, finally grasp the true essence of compassion before the charity event illuminated them both? The question hung tantalizingly in the air, a breath away from discovery and understanding, waiting to unfold in the most unexpected ways. Amelia's energy was electric as she flitted around the makeshift event space, transforming the otherwise stark room into a haven of warmth and color. She pinned up bright banners and arranged tables adorned with flowers, which she had scavenged locally, each blossom a small miracle plucked from the pavement. The soft fragrance filled the air, mingling with her favorite scent, freshly baked cookies. Caleb, positioned in the corner, marveled at the transformation against his own subdued backdrop. The laughter and chatter surrounding him felt like a distant echo, filling the void he had grown so accustomed to. With every joyous voice, Amelia seemed to sprinkle light into the darkness of his existence, making him acutely aware of his isolation. Each grin from her, each playful eye roll at a clumsy helper, chipped away at the heaviness that clung to his soul. "You're like a whirlwind," he finally managed, sarcasm diffusing his lingering bitterness. Amelia paused, vibrant smile illuminating her face. "And you're like a statue." She put her hands on her hips, mockingly serious. "If I had any paint and a brush, I'd start a masterpiece right here." He couldn't help but chuckle, despite himself. Beneath the layers of his defenses, a spark flickered. It poked through his heavy heart, aching yet hopeful. Little did he know, Amelia was doing something profound in those fleeting moments, not just encouraging laughter, but encouraging the possibility of change. As guests began to arrive, a familiar hum of anticipation filled the room. Each newcomer contributed a sense of community, a symphony of shared experiences, hopes, and struggles. Amelia moved through the crowd, greeting everyone warmly, while Caleb remained an observer, something within him anxious to step forward but held back by years of feeling unworthy. "Did you ever think you'd be a part of something like this?" Amelia asked during a lull, stepping beside him, her voice a playful whisper among the noise. "You know, mixing your multimillionaire strategies with my cookie baking genius?" He shrugged, fighting against a wave of vulnerability. "I'm just here to avoid being alone." "Charity? I guess I lost sight of what it means." Her response was immediate, tinged with compassion. "It's more than just putting on a show, Caleb. It's about connection, it's about having each other's back. We may come from different worlds, but we all deserve warmth and love. Maybe you need this more than you think." There was a moment of fragile silence as the world around them faded slightly. It was filled only by the gentle rustle of Amelia's movements, and the mingled laughter of nearby guests. Caleb sensed the truth in her words, piercing the coldness that gnawed at his heart. For the first time in what felt like forever, he considered crossing that chasm between them, not just for the charity, but for himself. As the night progressed, they worked side by side, laughter growing bolder, confidence blooming within Caleb's chest. He began to share stories of his company, of dreams deferred and realities that disappointed him. But just as he was ready to embrace the moment, a shadow loomed, a respected figure from his past, a business partner whose career had been built on Caleb's reputation. Standing there, a mixture of judgment and pity in his eyes, the specter of Caleb's previous life sent his heart racing, threatening to unravel the fragile connection he had just started to build. What would this person say? Would he chain Caleb back to his past or release him into the light? The question hung heavy in the air between them, palpable and raw. As the event swirled around them with laughter and love, could this night become the turning point for Caleb? Or would he retreat once again into the safety of his shadows? Caleb felt the weight of the past bearing down on him. The once familiar face of Mark, his former business partner, stirred a mix of emotions: shame, anger, and a hint of nostalgia. Mark's eyes were sharp, cutting through the soft atmosphere with the precision of a surgeon. The laughter around him dimmed, and the warmth Amelia had created suddenly felt cold. "Caleb," Mark said, his voice booming over the crowd, a polite yet biting tone. "I didn't expect to see you here. Is this some sort of charity for the less fortunate?" The disdain dripped from his words. Caleb stiffened, the electric connection he had just begun to nurture with Amelia flickering like a weak bulb. He didn't want to face Mark or the memory of the person he used to be. "Yeah, Mark," Caleb replied, his voice steadier than he felt. "Doing what I can to help." Amelia caught the shift in the air, her smile faltering as she sensed the tension. She stepped closer to Caleb, a silent support and anchor. "It's about community, Mark. All of us have something to share." Mark smirked, lifting an eyebrow. "Is that right? Maybe you should focus on your own business. I hear it's not doing so well." Caleb clenched his fists, a swirl of defensive anger coiling inside him. He could feel the eyes of the crowd shifting back and forth, their pity thick enough to cut through the air. This was supposed to be a night of joy, a night to build connections, not revisit old wounds. But Amelia's gentle hand on his arm brought him back. Her grip was firm, grounding him. "Let us not turn this into a showdown. Tonight is about warmth and love, remember?" Mark rolled his eyes, scoffing at the sentiment. "Love? Is that what you're calling it now? Let us just call it what it is, a desperate attempt to feel relevant again." Caleb exhaled sharply, rising to the occasion. "Maybe it's time to rethink what relevance means. These people matter. Their stories matter." The room fell silent, the laughter dying down as everyone felt the clash unfolding before them. There was an awkward tension, everyone waiting for Caleb to back down. Instead, he felt something shift within him, a spark igniting a flame. Amelia's belief in him, in this evening, emboldened him to stand tall. Mark opened his mouth to retaliate, but before he could, Amelia interjected. "And you matter too, Caleb. Your past can shape you, but it doesn't have to define you. You've helped build empires. Now maybe it's time to rebuild your own self-worth." Her words hung in the air. Caleb felt the warmth of the room rush back as he gazed into her eyes. They were filled with light, a promise of future he hadn't thought possible just moments before. But just as he was ready to respond, Mark let out an irritating laugh, shifting the atmosphere. You really think this, he gestured toward Amelia, is going to change anything for you? She's just a girl trying to play hero. What can she offer you that you can't get back in your boardrooms? All eyes were on Caleb, hearts racing with anticipation. A part of him wanted to shout back, to plunge into a fight, but something else nudged him forward, a quiet power that came from vulnerability. Amelia helps people feel seen. Maybe that is something I could learn from. The rustling crowd buzzed with surprise at his admission. For the first time, Caleb felt alive, stepping out of the shadows he had clung to for so long. The challenge hung thick in the air, a heartbeat of possibility. Would tonight mark the beginning of something new? Or would old ties drag him back into the dark? He took a deep breath, resolved to stand his ground, as he felt Amelia's unwavering support by his side. The moment was a test, one that would shape his next choice. And as the echoes of their pasts mingled with the laughter of the present, the future loomed. A question waiting to be answered: would he take a step forward into the light, or retreat back to the safety of his shadows? Caleb stood there, the air reverberating with tension. Mark's mocking words hung like a cloud over him. He could feel the weight of judgment and curiosity in the eyes around him. They were expecting him to falter, to retreat into the safe cocoon of silence. Instead, he opened his mouth, ready to let his truth spill out. Relevance isn't measured by wealth, he said, his voice firm. It's about connections, kindness, and the impact we have on each other's lives. A murmur swept through the crowd. It was a combination of surprise and admiration. Caleb felt powerful, but he also felt the flicker of doubt creeping in. What if he was wrong? What if his defense revealed a weakness instead of strength? Mark's expression soured, his eyes flashing with irritation. You think these folks care about some philosophical nonsense? They want real solutions, not empty banter. Caleb saw Amelia's unwavering support in her eyes, and it reignited his fire. Sometimes solutions come from understanding our community. You don't just throw money at problems, Mark. You roll up your sleeves and get involved. Instantly, the crowd shifted from a tense standoff to a reluctant buzz of excitement. People leaned in, intrigued. They slowly began to nod, a wave of energy flowing through them, encouraging Caleb. Mark scoffed, folding his arms. That's rich. Coming from the guy who bailed when things got tough. Caleb's heart clenched, but he pressed on. The knot inside him was twisting, fueled by years of self-doubt. Maybe I did make mistakes, but they don't define who I am today. I'm trying to be better, to learn. Isn't that what life is about? Amelia took a step closer, her voice soft yet clear. It's a journey, Mark, one that we all experience in our own way. Caleb deserves the chance to find his path, just like anyone else. Caleb turned to her, gratitude swelling in his chest. She had stepped into the fire with him. Her belief was becoming his lifeline, pulling him away from the edge of shame. The crowd was warming up again, smiles blooming as they began to rally behind his words. Caleb breathed deeply, knowing he could do this. He could be more than the shadows of his past failures. Look, Caleb continued, slowly scanning the room. What I've realized is that every single person in this room has a story. We have the power to share those stories with one another, to inspire, connect, and heal. Touching, Mark replied sarcastically, but naive. You think these people expect anything from you? Caleb's gaze narrowed, and his resolve strengthened as he met Mark's challenge. I think they expect a chance. A friend. Someone who listens. Someone who sees their worth. The room was changing, shifting from tension to a newfound warmth. Caleb felt the energy of understanding flow back to him, fueling his words. I've spent too long in the shadows. Maybe it's time we all stepped forward together. Not to compete, but to uplift. People were nodding now, murmurs of agreement spreading through the crowd. Something had clicked, a bond forming among them. Even Mark was momentarily silent, caught off guard by the unexpected unity blossoming in the room. As the evening wore on, laughter blended with the remnants of vulnerability that Caleb had shared. A lightness replaced the heaviness, transforming the atmosphere once again. Caleb could feel hope blooming within him. He wasn't just defending his actions. He was discovering a purpose. He glanced at Amelia, whose eyes sparkled with encouragement. But just as he thought he had conquered his internal battle, Mark leaned in closer. But tell me, Caleb, how long before you slip back into your old ways? The question echoed in Caleb's mind, planting doubt on what should have been a victorious night. He felt the warmth of the crowd, but Mark's doubt lingered, cold and chilling. Could he truly change? Could he keep fighting against his past? And as Caleb stood in that moment of vulnerability, the promise of a new beginning danced on the edge of his heart, waiting for his reply. Caleb's heart raced. It felt like everyone was holding their breath, waiting to hear if he would give in to Mark's challenge. The weight of uncertainty settled on his shoulders, yet something inside him stirred with determination. He would not let his past dictate his future. What if I do slip, Mark? Caleb replied, his voice steady. What if I stumble? It's not about perfection. It's about effort. It's about getting up again and again, no matter how many times I fall. Amelia's smile widened, and Caleb caught sight of heads nodding in agreement from the crowd. Encouraged, he continued. We're all imperfect. We all have our moments of weakness. But that's where growth happens. The real challenge is to learn from our failures, not to hide from them. Mark's expression sharpened. And how many chances do you think you'll get? People don't have the time to coddle someone who can't keep it together. Caleb felt the heat rising again. How could Mark be so heartless? But as the crowd swayed with a blend of frustration and intrigue, he sensed an opportunity. Maybe it's not about coddling, but about creating a space where people feel safe to be vulnerable, where they know they won't be judged for trying. A murmur of agreement rustled through the group like leaves stirring in the breeze. Caleb felt the tide turning. Each head nodding, each worried frown softening, fueled him further. Together, we can create that support. We can lean on each other and share our burdens. It's called community. Mark's irritation felt like a challenge now, and he shot back. And what do you know about community? You ran away when things got tough. You don't get to lecture anyone on sticking around. Caleb inhaled sharply, the memory of his past failures stinging him anew. He had walked away. But that old version of himself didn't exist anymore. He raised his chin, his pulse steadying. I know more than you think. I know what it feels like to feel alone, to be afraid of judgment. But there's strength and vulnerability too. The raw honesty in his voice peeled back the layers of doubt within the crowd. He saw glimmers of recognition, people relating his struggles to their own. He took a step closer, vulnerability radiating from him. We've all been there, haven't we? We know what it's like to feel lost, overlooked. But standing here tonight, I feel a spark of hope. And I want to ignite that hope in each of you. Silence enveloped the room, punctuated only by the soft rustling of acceptance. Hearts were opening. Eyes glistened with understanding. Caleb's true message was sinking in. Finally, one voice rose above the quiet. A woman from the back stepped forward, her eyes bright with tears. Caleb, you're right. We need each other. Because when we lift one another, we rise together. The crowd murmured its agreement, voices intertwining, fortifying the atmosphere of support. Caleb felt the warmth of their unity, drowning out the cold grip of Mark's doubts. But just as hope surged forward, a heavier reality cast a shadow. You all say that now, Mark added, his voice sharper. But what happens when the community you're supposed to build turns corrupt? What happens when the darkness creeps back in? Caleb faltered for just a moment, the weight of Mark's words crashing into him. It didn't feel like just an argument anymore. It felt like a reckoning. Could they truly keep the darkness at bay? As Caleb stared into the sea of faces before him, he felt a flicker of doubt worm its way into his heart. But being there, right in that moment, he realized he had a choice to let the doubt anchor him, or to rise above it. Would he choose courage, or would he let the darkness of his past define him? And as the crowd held its breath, Caleb faced the truth. It was time to decide. Caleb's heart thudded against his ribcage, each pulse a reminder of the choice hanging in the air. He could feel the warmth of the crowd swelling around him, but Mark's words echoed louder, taunting him with memories he tried so hard to escape. The past could bleed into the present if he let it. He exhaled slowly, drawing strength from the bonds forming in the room. Mark, we're not perfect, Caleb said, his voice rising, fueled by the faces he saw before him, the tears, the hope, the shared struggle. We're human. And that's why we need each other. If we were built to face everything alone, we wouldn't need a community at all. He could see more members of the crowd nodding now, some whispering softly, their initial hesitation giving way to acceptance. Suddenly, a fire ignited within him. Look, I've been there. I've felt the weight of darkness and the loneliness that comes with it. But that's the point. It's not about avoiding the shadows. It's about confronting them together. The way the words flowed felt different this time, almost like a spell lifting. An older man stepped forward, his voice trembling yet strong. When I lost my job, I thought I'd lost everything. But my neighbors showed up. They didn't have a lot, but they brought meals, they listened. They gave me hope. We need that now more than ever. As the room filled with murmurs of agreement, Caleb felt a surge of gratitude. Every shared story fortified the flame they were kindling together. He glanced back at Mark, whose bravado now seemed more like a mask than armor. What about you, Mark? Caleb asked, locking eyes with him. When was the last time you let anyone in? You're strong, I get that. But even the strongest need others sometimes. Mark's expression faltered. Caleb could see the wheels turning in his mind. An unforeseen crack in his armor. You're refusing to see the bigger picture, Mark shot back, though there was less venom in his tone. People are flawed. They will let you down. Caleb's heart softened. Yes, they might. But they can also surprise you with kindness, loyalty, and courage. I've experienced it, and I know so many of you have too. He gestured to the crowd. Look at us. Have we not all come together tonight? This isn't just some ideal. This is real. A ripple of excitement swept through the audience. For the first time, Caleb saw genuine intrigue flicker in Mark's eyes. Maybe, just maybe, he was beginning to understand. Then, just as the energy shifted, a young girl with braids and bright eyes stepped up beside Caleb. I want to help, she chirped. I can make cookies for everyone. When everyone is sad or scared, cookies can help. The crowd erupted into laughter. Caleb couldn't help but smile, the weight of the room lifting momentarily. Exactly, he said, kneeling to meet her gaze. It's those small acts that build connection. It's about the little things that remind us we aren't alone. The girl nodded enthusiastically, and Caleb felt a swell in his heart. Maybe together, they truly could forge something lasting. But what if she's right? Mark interrupted, a hint of vulnerability sneaking into his tone. What if we can build something beautiful? A moment hung between them, silent but charged, as everyone waited on the edge of hope. The question wasn't just for Caleb, it was for everyone present. Can we keep that beauty alive? Caleb asked, examining the crowd. Can we hold each other accountable for the promises we make in this moment? As voices joined in eager agreement, Caleb felt the foundations of something strong and unyielding begin to form. But would they hold when faced with the inevitable storms of life? The echo of that question lingered, filling the air with uncertainty, but also with the strength of a collective resolve. They stood on the precipice of something new, but the path ahead remained shrouded in mystery. And as Mark stepped back, hesitation etched in his features, Caleb knew the real challenge was still to come. Would they truly be able to navigate the darkness together? Or would fear pull them apart again? In that moment, the pivotal shift hung on the horizon, waiting for the right moment to be unveiled. Caleb could feel the energy in the room crackling with anticipation. Laughter and whispers mingled, creating a warm blanket of camaraderie that wrapped around him. But as he looked at Mark, the weight of uncertainty still loomed. Every moment that passed felt like a ticking clock, counting down to something significant, a moment of transformation, or a lapse back into isolation. Just then, the girl with the bright eyes spoke up again. I'll make the cookies. And we can do it together. She bounced on her toes, her excitement infectious. Everyone can help, and then we can share them with each other. Caleb watched as other kids started to chime in, their small voices merging into a cacophony of ideas. We can have a bake-off. And a park day. Let us have a block party. The older man who had shared his story earlier smiled, his eyes sparkling with joy. You know, I remember when we used to do that when I was younger. It brought everyone together. Mark stood silent, arms crossed, His brow furrowed as murmurs of nostalgia floated around him. Caleb seized the moment, stepping forward gently. "Look, Mark," he said softly, searching for the right words. "These people are reminding us of what we can do when fear doesn't run the show." Mark met his gaze, the challenge hanging in the space between them. "And what if it doesn't work? What if they don't show up?" His voice was quieter now, almost vulnerable. "What if they do?" Caleb countered. "What if we all show up? Life is full of risks, but aren't they worth taking when it means connecting with each other?" And this girl, he pointed at the young, hopeful face beaming back at him. "She's ready to fight against those fears. Isn't that worth something?" Mark's expression softened slightly, though he still held back. Caleb could hear the heartbeat of anticipation all around him. Everyone waiting for that one push to jump into action. "I'm in." A voice called from the edges of the crowd. It was a woman from the neighborhood, someone Caleb knew had also been struggling. "Let us do this." One by one, others began to echo her sentiment. "I'll help. Count me in. I can bring drinks." The room erupted, enthusiasm igniting everything. Caleb felt the weight on his shoulders ease. The shared mission drew them closer. Individuals transforming into a community. Maybe they truly were building something beautiful. Mark's eyes flickered, caught between memories and the possibility of something new. Caleb took a deep breath, ready to push one last time. "Let us make a pact," he proposed, raising his hands for silence. "No matter our fears or doubts, let us promise to show up for each other. Let us commit to building something real, and to see where it takes us." The crowd murmured agreement, voices rising in a choir of hope. Mark hesitated, then finally broke the silence, slowly adding, "I can try." The words were a tentative thread, but it was enough. The tension in the room shifted, everyone leaning into the possibility of change. Just as the energy peaked, a loud crash interrupted the moment, followed by a nearby shout. Caleb's heart sank as they turned to see a small table overturned, its contents scattered across the floor. An uneasy silence fell again, eyes darting toward the commotion. "What just happened?" someone whispered, stealing glances back at Mark and Caleb. Caleb's stomach twisted. They had just begun to build something beautiful. Could it withstand the disruption? He glanced at Mark, who seemed to finally understand the weight of the moment. Together, they turned to address the noise, their resolve tinged with uncertainty. Would the beauty they started to create survive this chaos? Or was this just a sign of the trials yet to come? The air grew thick with the tension of unanswered questions. The path ahead now cloaked in challenges just waiting to be faced. The sound of the crash echoed like thunder in the tense room. Caleb's heart raced as he took a step forward, instinctively wanting to help. Mark followed closely behind, both of them stepping into a chaotic scene that threatened to unravel the fragile connection they were building. A couple of kids were crouched down, their faces scrunched up in confusion as they tried to gather the spilled cookies and frosting. The girl with the bright eyes, still buzzing from the excitement, bent down to help, determination etched across her face. She didn't let the chaos deter her spirit. "What happened?" Caleb asked, his voice steady but laced with concern. One of the children, a boy with a shock of messy hair, looked up, his eyes wide and worried. "I leaned on the table too hard," he exclaimed, his voice small. "I didn't mean to." Caleb felt a wave of sympathy wash over him. He remembered being that age when every small mistake felt like the end of the world. Before he could reassure the boy, Mark stepped in, kneeling beside him. "It's all right," Mark said, surprisingly calm. "We all make mistakes. Let us fix it together." He began scooping up the cookies, his demeanor melting into something softer. The shift in Mark was almost palpable. Caleb watched as Mark took charge, directing the others. "You get the frosting," he pointed to the girl, "and you help him with those cookies." For the first time, Mark was not just a hesitant participant, but a leader, a part of the community he had once distanced himself from. A ripple of laughter broke through the tension. The boy, still feeling the weight of his blunder, managed a shy smile as he picked up a cookie and held it up for approval. "This one's okay, right?" Caleb chuckled, feeling the relief settle in. "That one's a masterpiece," he replied, his smile genuine, lifting the spirits of the children around him. Together, they worked to clean up the mess, their hands busy and minds distracted from earlier anxieties. The air buzzed with chatter, the sound of laughter weaving through the chaos as they pictured the sweet treats they would make. Mark stood taller now, his gaze sweeping over the room, surveying the collective effort around him. Caleb saw small cracks beginning to form in the wall Mark had built around himself. It was the same barrier that had kept the warmth of community at bay. Suddenly, Mark turned to Caleb, a spark of hope flashing in his eyes. "What if we made a lot of cookies?" he suggested, as if the idea just dawned on him. "Like a whole table full for everyone in the neighborhood." The suggestion hung in the air, uncertain yet absolutely thrilling. Caleb felt a grin spread across his face. "We could invite everyone," he proposed, excited by the idea. "Make it a big gathering. A celebration." The kids responded instantly, joy igniting their youthful energy. "Yeah, a cookie party." They cheered, already envisioning the festivities, the community coming together, sharing laughter and warmth over a table full of sweets. Mark began to chuckle, his laugh sounding almost foreign yet liberating. It filled the room with energy, spreading to the others around them. The fear and skepticism that had filled the room moments before seemed to fade, replaced by a powerful sense of belonging. But as excitement bubbled and plans erupted, Caleb's thoughts drifted to that precarious moment before the crash, the sudden chaos of life that could just as easily pull them apart as bring them together. What if their newfound bond was just as fragile as the moment of clumsiness? And just like that, Caleb felt the tide shift again. Would this budding connection withstand whatever life threw their way? He looked back at Mark, who was now smiling broadly, and for the first time, Caleb felt a swell of hopes mingle with his fears. They were on the cusp of something truly special, yet the uncertainty loomed, like shadows at dusk. As laughter rang out, Caleb couldn't shake the feeling that the hardest fight was still ahead. Would they sink or swim when faced with the real obstacles lurking beyond the horizon? With that thought, he took a deep breath, ready to face whatever came next. Caleb woke up the next morning with a tingle of anticipation. The previous day's cookie disaster had somehow transformed into an exciting project. Mark was buzzing about, already drafting ideas for the cookie party. He had gotten up before dawn, his mind racing with creative thoughts. "Caleb, come see," Mark called from the kitchen. Caleb got up, excitement bubbling in his chest. He found Mark at the counter, flour covering his hands as he stirred a large bowl of dough. "We're starting the first batch," Mark announced with a wide grin. The way his eyes sparkled was enough to light up the room. It felt as if an old weight had lifted, both of them embracing this new energy. "Whoa, we're really doing this," Caleb said, and he couldn't help but laugh at the sight. It was a stark contrast to the brooding person Mark had been just weeks ago. They both dove into the chore of mixing and measuring, their laughter filling the kitchen. Before long, the kids began to filter into the house, curious and giggly about the prospect of a cookie party. They looked eager, faces filled with hope, bringing in an energy that felt electric. Mark and Caleb exchanged thoughtful glances, the kind that said, "We've got this." "Since we're a team now, let us make some crazy flavors," Mark suggested. "How about peanut butter and jelly cookies? Or maybe chocolate mint? Let us ask the kids." Caleb grinned, and soon they had gathered all the children in the living room. With a wave of excitement, they brainstormed ideas. The kids shouted suggestions, their voices overlapping in a whirlwind of creativity. It was a beautiful chaos, and amidst it all, Caleb felt a blossoming affection for this community that had previously felt so distant. As they settled on their themes and flavors, the scene became a flurry of activity. Kids were running back and forth for flour, sugar, and sprinkles. Mark and Caleb's initial plans expanded as they enlisted the children's help to mix and roll the dough together. But as the excitement grew, Caleb felt a whisper of doubt creep into his mind. What if this gathering fell flat? What if all their efforts led to a disappointing turnout? Each time he pushed those thoughts away, Mark caught his eye, as if sensing the unease swirling inside Caleb's head. "Hey," Mark said softly, catching him off guard. "No second guessing. We're all in this together." The reassurance dressed in Mark's sincerity sent warmth fluttering through Caleb. For the first time, it felt like they were truly partners. Hours passed in a blur, and soon the sweet fragrance of cookies filled the house. The mix of cinnamon, sugar, and vanilla wafted through the air, creating an atmosphere draped in comfort and anticipation. Yet as they prepared for the gathering, Caleb constantly glanced at the clock. What if their neighbors didn't show up? What if they threw this delightful bash, only for it to turn out to be an echoing disappointment? Then, just as he voiced this fear to Mark, they heard a soft knock at the door. The sight that greeted them took Caleb's breath away. A small crowd had gathered on the front porch, families, kids, all smiling and holding trays of treats. "Is this the cookie party?" one of them called out, beaming with joy. "Yes," Mark hollered, his grin wider than ever. Hope surged through Caleb. Maybe they were on the brink of something extraordinary, something that could bind them all together. As the door swung open, laughter spilled into the room, the energy a living pulse of anticipation. Then all at once Caleb felt lighter. Was it the joy on their faces? The warmth of community? Or was it simply knowing that this was just the beginning of something beautiful? And just as the party got underway, Caleb felt a strange sense of clarity. Life had a way of throwing curveballs. But with each cookie, each laugh, they could face whatever lay ahead together. With new faces joining in, Caleb's heart soared. But deep down, that niggling doubt still whispered in his ear, reminding him that nothing is ever as simple as it seems. What twists awaited them when the celebration took an unexpected turn? Would all the joy hold up against the unexpected struggles that life had in store? The sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the lively scene. Laughter danced in the air like sugar-laced dreams. The cookie party buzzed with energy, as families and kids filled Caleb and Mark's home with warmth and an unexpected sense of unity, a living tapestry woven from their individual stories. Amelia arrived just as the first batch of cookies was coming out of the oven. A bright smile stretched across her face. "I brought sprinkles," she exclaimed, raising a colorful container high. The crowd cheered and clapped, welcoming her into the fold. She flitted through the gathering, her presence a beacon of joy that drew everyone in. As Caleb looked around, the weight of uncertainty that had plagued him began to lift. One by one he saw families bonding, sharing laughter over the sprinkles, the funny cookie shapes, and the chaotic mess of flour that coated the children's giggling faces. It was a picture of simple connectivity that he had long forgotten existed. Yet amidst the jubilant chaos, Caleb's heart still drummed a hesitant beat. Life was unpredictable. He knew that all too well. What would happen when the sugar high wore off? When the last crumb was consumed? Would they scatter back into their separate lives? Doubt shadowed him like an old friend, whispering fear into his ear. Mark, now fully engaged in the festivities, caught Caleb's eye, a knowing look exchanged between them. "You good?" he asked, genuine concern written on his face. Caleb took a deep breath, summoning a smile. "Yeah, just can it last?" "You've got to allow it to," Mark replied, squeezing Caleb's shoulder. "Just be present. Embrace this moment." Those words hung in the air, echoing a truth more significant than any cookie recipe. It was then that Caleb heard chatter rising from the back of the room, drawing his attention. A small child had asked a question that snagged everyone's mood, pulling them into a collective pause. "Can we do this again next weekend?" The room erupted in agreement, excited cheers and hopeful abounding laughter. A vision of a community gathering took shape, glimmering with color and possibility. Caleb felt a surge of warmth blossom in his chest. Maybe this wasn't just a one-time celebration. Maybe this was the start of something sustainable. Amelia stepped up beside him, her eyes sparkling with resolve. "This can become a monthly thing. No one should have to feel alone. This is just the beginning." Her unwavering faith ignited something within him, a flame hotter than chocolate fresh from the oven. "But what about real-life challenges?" A voice from the back chimed in, a note of skepticism threading through the promise of joy. "What happens when life gets tough again?" Caleb turned, feeling the intensity of the moment. That's when the community matters most. He stepped forward, calling out everyone's attention. Life isn't just about the good moments. It's about how we support each other through the tough times. Just like cookies, some things need time and patience. We can lean on one another, learn how to be better, and remind ourselves of that warmth when shadows fall. Amelia nodded fiercely. "Exactly. We can plan events, check in on each other. We don't have to wait until they're in need. We can create a culture of kindness and compassion, Just like in our homes, even when life spills cookies. A ripple of agreement surged through the crowd. Caleb felt his heart pound in rhythm with a new energy, one of enthusiasm, hope, and a sense of belonging. "Let us build this together," he declared. "Let us commit to showing up for one another, every day." And as the laughter swelled again, Caleb felt the shadows lifting. The doubts that had plagued him shrank into a distant memory. He was no longer just a man alone in a world that felt heavy. He was part of something beautiful, a community molded by shared struggles and victories. The unfolding night embraced them as they began to share their stories, tales of triumph, struggle, and aspiration. Old walls crumbled, giving way to a newfound openness and understanding. As the last cookie was savored, Caleb felt a rush of gratitude. It wasn't he perfect yet. They would face challenges and uncertainties together. But for the first time, he felt hope flourish in this place. Perhaps it was the cookies that had sparked the initial connection, but it was the shared humanity that fueled their journey. With laughter surrounding him and warmth in his heart, Caleb took a step forward, embracing the unexpected twists yet to come. Life would throw curveballs, but they would meet them together, united by cookies, by love, and by the strong thread of community. He looked at Amelia, her smile radiating light, and knew they would face whatever lay ahead, hand in hand, together. And just as he began to reflect on the night, a child raised a half-eaten cookie high, declaring, "To more cookie parties." The room erupted in cheers, the promise of unity echoing in their hearts. As this newfound bond formed a beautiful mosaic of connection, Caleb couldn't help but believe he was finally home. Now more than ever, it felt right. This was just the beginning. And you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for our journey. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep this community growing. I want to hear from you. Comment your reactions to this ending and what it means to you. Don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Only true fans understand the importance of uplifting each other. Let's keep this incredible momentum going.